Hey tea heads, this is Don from Mayleaf. We should all know by now that one of the most incredible beneficial attributes of tea culture, cha dao, however you want to talk about it, and especially Gong Fu style tea, is the ability that tea gives you to bring you into the most magical moment, the greatest moment of all, the present moment. It allows you to relinquish the recriminations and regrets of the past, to shrug off the fears and concerns of the future and bring you into the now, the is. Celebrate the isness to give you a sense of personal freedom, liberty, but also to maximize your creative, spiritual and mental potential. And I love that aspect of tea. I've done videos about that before. I'll put links in the description below. So what we wanted to do is find a tea that just celebrates that really focuses on that one attribute of tea. And so we created this raw pu'er tea here. This is called the JOURNO. And as you can see, it is in little Dragon Balls. So this is the first Dragon Ball pu'er that we've ever released. We've got TEAWARE tea in our ripe tea range, Black Yunnan Tour, but this is the first Dragon Ball style format that we've had for raw pu'er, and I felt that it really sort of suited it because well, you'll see when I open it. So this is JOURNO. They're they range, but they're around 7 grams, a bit more than 7 grams per ball. I've actually written 6.5 on the packaging here just to be extra safe, but I've measured a few and they're all 7.2, 7.3 grams. You can see the tea here. It is a lovely raw pu'er. Let's talk about the scope. This is season spring 2021, April 2021, cultivar Daya Zhong. The origin is from the Bulang Mountains, so Bulang area of Yunnan, one of our favorite mountains that have a very impactful, characterful taste and effect, and that's something that we really wanted with this JOURNO to bring you into the present. The picking and processing is going to be a bud in up to 3 leaves, and the elevation is around 1,200 meters. And we have gone for this Dragon Ball style. Specifically, let me just wipe this because it's a little bit wet, my vessel. Specifically because we wanted for each one of these wrappers to be a sort of journal for you. So, you know, journaling has become more and more popular. Obviously, this isn't replacing journaling, but what we wanted the wrapper to do is to give you a focal point to make you become more present, hopefully, when you're drinking this tea. So you can see on here the cover. Hopefully you can see it, but I'll put a more detailed picture if you can't. This is a raccoon popping his or her head out of a tree, like a hole in a tree, and with a microphone in his hand, because this is all about you. And whilst you can obviously drink this tea socially and, you know, in all of your sort of bigger sessions with other people, this tea was really designed around individual drinking, a chance for you to sit down and take one of these Dragon Balls and have this moment for yourself. And so the raccoon is asking you the question, check in with yourself. How are you doing? Really, how are you doing? You know, check in with yourself. The JOURNO asking you to answer the question, you know, how's it going? How are you doing? How are you feeling? And more importantly, how can you bring yourself more into the present moment? And so the wrapper itself asks you to fill it in. Obviously, you don't need to do that, but I'm hoping that enough of you will. And it says here, I drank this tea on, and you put the date and the year, so you've got a record. And during this session, I saw, I heard, and I noticed. So 3 things for you to fill in. What did you see? What did you hear? What did you notice? Very important that this is non-judgmental. It's simply observation. And as we know, observation, and especially non-judgmental observation, is one of the most incredible ways to bring yourself into the moment. Non-judgmental is very important because therefore it doesn't sort of bring in concepts of identity and value. It is simply about celebrating the great isness of life, being in the is, the moment, the now, and freeing yourself from concepts of identity, value, and all of those possible negative aspects of the past and the future. And so asking you, what did you see? What did you hear? What did you notice? And also up here, there's a little space for you to get creative. Again, in a completely non-judgmental way, it says my doodle. So just a little doodle, however you want to interpret that you can do when you drink this tea. And I hope that enough of you will keep these wrappers and sort of, you know, keep them as sort of souvenirs for your sessions. You might also want to post pictures online. If you do, then make sure you hashtag JOURNO so that we can find them. Right, let's dive in to the tasting, because obviously, the most important thing when we selected this tea was, how do we choose a tea that is delicious, that is, you know, meeting all of the expectations of a May leaf tea, but also has that character about it for really forcing your attention. And hopefully it achieves that. This is the first proper tasting that I've done with this tea. So I'm hoping that it lives up to my expectations. And I'm going to tell you how I like to brew these Dragon Ball teas, because they do require a different style of brewing. So I am going to pop the Dragon Ball into a hot Gaiwan. We're going to go through the smell of the dry leaf. You're not going to get as much aroma as if it was an open leaf, obviously. So if you broke a cake and then separated out the leaves, you're going to get more aroma, of course, but you can still get a lot of aroma, especially if you've got a good shaped Gaiwan. So a Gaiwan that sort of concentrates the aromatics, like this one here. So the aromatics that we noticed when we selected the tea and continue to persist here is a very interesting aroma of very concentrated strawberry, like strawberry jam, and dark toffees, treacles, and also a resinous element to it. So like sort of resin style incense. Now, I am not going to be rinsing this tea. Let's talk about the purposes of rinsing the tea. So there are a few, and I've done a video about rinsing tea. I'll put it in the description below. But the two that I want to focus on today is, the first is making the leaves ready for its first proper infusion. So just sort of waking them up, if you like, sort of getting the water to start to moisten them so that you can do relatively short infusions moving forward, so you're not sort of extracting too long. That's one of the benefits. The second is that you can therefore really enjoy the smell of the wet leaf. And if you just do a standard sort of rinse, so in, out, water in, and then rinse out, so sort of 10 seconds, you're not going to achieve those two aims. And so for Dragon Balls, what I like to do is actually combine my rinse with my first infusion. So I'm going to be drinking this, and I like to brew for 45 seconds to a minute. Now, I don't have a stopwatch here, but around that length of time. And so what that's going to do is going to allow that Dragon Ball to just start to open up a little bit more. The first rinse stroke infusion is going to be a lighter infusion, but it's still going to give me a lot of character notes of a tea. And I should say that drinking the rinse is something that is done quite often in China, especially with pu'ers, because you do get a sense of the character of the tea. It's not really as good, obviously, as the first infusion, but you do get a sense of quality. And so I like to leave it for a little bit. That way I can taste it, but also I can get all of the joys, hopefully, of the smell of the wet leaf. It feels like it's been a while since I've done one of these just single tea tasting sessions with you. I'm excited to get stuck into this. So I reckon that's around 45 seconds to a minute. And you can see the color of this liquor is pale, but it's a noticeable extraction. It does have a bit of a sort of golden green color. Also, what I like to do is just give the Dragon Ball another 20-30 seconds in a humid environment like this just before I open up this lid, just to again start to sort of prise and carefully and gently with the humidity, prise the leaves apart, just separate them apart. And you'll see that this Dragon Ball actually will open up relatively quickly. I know that there are different levels of compression. Okay, here we go. Smell of the wet leaf. Oh, and now I can really get so much more aroma compared to if I had just done a 5 to 10 second rinse. Okay, complicated. I am still getting the strawberries and strawberry jams. I'm getting fudge, rock sugar. I'm getting a herbal note, a sort of woodsy herbal note. And veering on the spicy. So eucalyptus, but not eucalyptus oil, eucalyptus bark. In my garden, in my childhood home, we used to have a big eucalyptus tree, and the eucalyptus tree, you may have seen this before, but the eucalyptus tree bark sort of peels off naturally, and you get these sort of sheddings of eucalyptus bark. And I'm very, that is a very particular childhood smell to me. Another childhood smell to me is patchouli oil. Patchouli, I think it's patchouli oil. We have a lot of essential oils in our clinic and in our shop, and patchouli oil has a very particular smell. It's in that sort of liniment eucalyptus note, but it has a woodier note to it. So eucalyptus bark, patchouli. You can see the Dragon Ball is opening up here as well. I'm also getting, as well as the strawberry, I'm getting like a cherry note, but like cherry cough sweets. So cherry cough sweets, strawberry jams, a little bit of fudge, eucalyptus bark, patchouli oil, a combination of fruits, woods, and spices, and those spices moving more into the medicinal without it. I hope that doesn't put people off, but that sort of, it feels like it's beneficial for you. Okay, so I'm going to drink this rinse stroke first infusion. Now, of course, you can not follow my advice and you can rinse shorter, 10 seconds, pour that rinse away. But you would probably not get that much smell out of the wet leaf. You'd get some, but you're not going to get as much. And you probably have to just go back to it through infusions and then pick up more of the smell. But I like to focus my attention on the wet smell of the leaf before I do any tasting. So I'm not going to focus on texture here. I'm just going to assess the quality of the tea. And what you're looking for when you're drinking the rinse is purity. You want a taste of purity, and you want a sense of the potential of the aromatics. So you are going to pick up aromatic notes too. I'm not going to talk about them now, but what I get here is very clean, very bright. The aromatics are rising. They are lifting. The texture, I'm starting to feel that there is going to be some physicality with this tea, but it's not about descriptors so much. It's more about noticing potential flaws when you are drinking the rinse. And I wouldn't suggest you do this with, for example, JOURNO pu'er, like cooked pu'er, because you're gonna JOURNO pu'er is designed really, or like, the style of the production is about getting rid of that rinse. Whereas when you're talking about green teas and you're talking about raw pu'ers, I think you can have more of this assessment of quality, in my opinion. It's very nice. It sort of tastes like river water, but river water flowing through a very fragrant forest. All right, I am going to give some to the elephant. Otherwise, I feel like I'm not quite giving the elephant his dues. Okay, So now let's do our first infusion. Now I am going to reduce the time back down to sort of 20 to 30 seconds because now the leaf has opened up and you can see it's still got some solidity, but it is opening up relatively quickly. I have had Dragon Balls before where they just take ages to open up. I don't really like that. Although you do get like 20 plus infusions. So here we go, 30-second infusion. How is everybody doing out there? We're in the tiger year. I thought this would be the right time to release this tea. Like, let's focus on presence. If you didn't see my video last week all about the states of self and how that relates to individual versus collective, I really think one of the most incredible attributes of tea drinking is this hack to be able to bring you to a meditative state through the achieving of presence. And that might be through the focus that you're putting on the brewing process or on the tasting process, or simply giving yourself that time to sit and enjoy tea however you like to enjoy it. I think that tea and presence are inextricably linked, and I hope that this tea just forges a more direct conscious bond between tea and presence. Colour. It's a lovely sort of rose gold colour. Let me try to do this and see if I can give you a bit more of a... This is one of those colour charts that I use to grade the colour of things. Hopefully that gives you a little bit of an example of what it is. A sort of rose gold with a slight touch of green in there, and has a decent amount of activity going on. Yeah, I can see a cloudiness, not cloudiness, but sort of a suspension going on. And of course that's going to continue to evolve as the Dragon Ball opens up. And it's worth saying that brewing from loose leaf is always going to have a different trajectory or arc in your tea experience compared to brewing tea which is compressed and is opening up. And it's an interesting discussion, probably for another video. All right, here we go. Now I am going to focus on texture. The Juice Journo. Checking in with yourself. How are you doing today? Let's see what this tea has in terms of texture. Nice, thick, oily, moving to dry and quenching, and then we'll talk about how that releases to juiciness as we experience it. But first impression is surprisingly thick, considering that this is a Dragon Ball that's just opening up, and oily. Definitely got a nice lubricating oily note in the mouth. I'll talk about the finish later. Right, now then, let's talk about the taste. And I am getting a consistency here. There is a sweetness to this tea, and that sweetness is deep and relatively dark and relatively carameled, but it's not caramel, it's more complicated than that. We talked about fudge earlier in terms of the smell of the wet leaf. I would say it's even darker than that. We talked about treacle before in the smell of the dry leaf. I think it's sort of in between. I'm sort of thinking of rock sugars, like amber, deep rock sugars. Oh no, you know what? I'm thinking of palm sugar, Thai palm sugar. So it's sort of a deep, deep brown, but not dark like treacle. It's carameled, but it has a more complicated, complex note. If you've ever had palm sugar, if you've ever had Thai food, they use a lot of palm sugar in their as the sweetening element in their balance of flavors. So palm sugars. The strawberries have shifted. I am still getting strawberries. I am still getting the cherry cough sweets, but I'm also getting a distinct acidity. Acidity is the wrong word. A distinct brightness that comes through the hydration of the leaf. Blackcurrant, but again concentrated. Blackcurrant jam. And even though I should really wait before I talk about the finish, the two are interlinked, taste and the mouth finish, or the texture that it leaves me with, because it is very, very mineral. And that minerality expresses itself in a quench and a dryness, which does release to juiciness, but hold back, we'll talk about that later. But the minerality is very, very sweet. It reminds me of like sherbet, so there's a little bit of fresh zing sherbet, and it's sort of a cooling sweetness, maybe like very hard meringues, like quite powdery. No, I know what it is. Let me just brew it again. If you've ever had glucose tablets, chewable glucose tablets that have a minerally, powdery, icing sugary sort of sweetness and have a cooling nature in the mouth, those glucose tablets, yeah, that's the closest descriptor to what I refer to as a sweet, cooling minerality. So it has the depth of palm sugars and fudge. It has the sweetness of rock sugars and glucose tablets and a little zing of sherbet. And then the fruitiness is blackcurrant jam. Yeah, blackcurrant jam. And I would say there is a certain resinous quality to the sweetness as well. Maybe we're, again though, it's not so much like pine resin, it's more in the nature of like a fruit flavored incense, like a fruit, like concentrated, like, I don't know, strawberry or cherry resin. That's what we talked about cough sweets before. We'll stick with jams, but there is a resinous quality to it as well. Second infusion, deeper, darker, more ambered in its color. And I will show you, you can see here, this has now completely opened up. So you can see that it really does open up very, very quickly, the Dragon Ball. So 2 infusions and this is completely separate now. So, you know, the compression, I like this compression for Dragon Balls because if it sort of takes 3, 4, 5 infusions to open up, I feel that the arc or trajectory of the session becomes impacted and you don't get as much of a accurate assessment or experience of the leaves because it's taking too long for the leaves to open up, and so you're brewing too much of the outer leaves before the inner leaves. Right, here we go. That's what I was hoping for. That minerality is just, you know, it's getting stronger. And this is why we selected this tea, especially from Bulang area of Yunnan province. Very impactful teas, more mineral heavy, wanting this tea to just bring your attention in. It tingles, it quenches the tongue. It brings a beautiful, grippy dryness that then tingles and sort of teases you with its release of juiciness. It's not initially flooding, but that tingle starts to release this sort of cherry sweet, icing sugar sweet juiciness into the mouth that is glorious. It's like a time release transformation from that quench to the juiciness, and the joy of that is this tingle, this sort of tingling sensation on the top, on the sides of my tongue, and even towards the back of my throat. Not scratchy, tingly, like zingy. And that's what I was hoping for. And one of the key reasons why I selected this tea, strawberry candies are coming through. mint toffees, mint humbugs are coming through as well. Ooh, sensation in the body is starting to rise as well. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Present. Taste and mouthfeel. Really, really drawing your attention in. Okay, we're going to smell this empty gong dabe. See what that gives us. Very, very sweet. Again, palm sugar and fudge. But there is a fruitiness as well. It's funny how, well, it's in a way obvious that things that you've eaten recently are going to feed their way into your tasting notes. Recently, my daughter has really fallen in love with blackcurrant jam, and I'm getting that in the taste and in the wet leaf. Here, I'm getting dried persimmons, but that's, I think, because I now have a real close relationship with that smell because I've been eating some dried persimmons, hoshigaki from Japan. I spoke about it in a video a couple of weeks ago, and it's there present. Slightly fudgy, but more, yeah, just dried sugars and that gentle, almost creamy sweetness of a very ripe persimmon. Okay, gonna roll through at least a few more infusions. I can already feel this rising energy in me. Let's see about body sensation. Here we have the 6th infusion. Before we get into the body sensation, which is lovely and on point with the concept of this tea, I want to talk about the minerality of this tea. A term often used when referring to teas, but especially raw pu'er teas. People can argue about whether or not you can taste minerals, but you can certainly sense them, in my opinion, on the mouth. And the minerality on this is just so powerful but gentle at the same time. It's distinct. It's very noticeable when you drink it, but it's not the type of minerality somehow is soft and powdery. It's like intense but powdery. It reminds me again of those glucose sugars, glucose tablets, cooling, powdery minerality. It's sort of like I have images of me just like chewing on a mountain, like, you know, a giant me, like biting into rocks, but those rocks having a lot of sort of icing sugar, powderiness in them. It's just a lovely, lovely minerality on this tea. Bulang coming correct. You know, that's one of the key aspects of Bulang tea that I love. Right, moving on to the body sensation. Warming, heating, moving to cooling, because then you perspire, so you get that cooling sensation. Very opening in the lungs. I feel like this is allowing me to take deeper, more fulfilling breaths. Energizing, but it doesn't feel like it's affecting heart rate. It doesn't feel like it's affecting sort of adrenaline. It's more a sense of clarity, a sense of brightness. That brightness being maybe tweaked a little bit so it feels slightly overexposed, where everything feels a little bit brighter than normal. And that sort of adds a sort of element of trippiness to it, in the sense that it's just everything's, whoa, it's like very, very bright, you know? Like you've opened your eyes after sort of sunbathing for a while, and so, whoa, taking your time a little bit to adjust. But overall, it's very clear, very present, which is obviously the purpose of this tea. So loving the body sensation, loving the fact that it feels bright, clear, but not, you know, as I said, raising the heart rate too much, allowing you to be a bit more meditative. You can see the look of these leaves, beautiful, tender, golden, light khakis, golden greens, a little bit of bronze, a little bit of chestnut in there. I should say that this is from old tea trees, estimated 100 to 200 years old, so approaching the gushu, but not quite getting there. And you can certainly taste and feel the age of the tea trees and the quality of the tea leaf picking. So there you go, Juice Journo, our latest raw pu'er in a different format. I know some of you would be hoping to have this artwork in a cake format, a larger format. We'll try and get some stickers printed up so we can at least have some of those going out in the future. It's not going to be right now because we haven't done that. But the raccoon asking you, how's it going? Check in with yourself, and most importantly, without judgments, just observe and be present in your session. That's it, tea heads. Check out our other videos, taste our teas wherever you are in the world by browsing mayleaf.com, and come visit us if you're ever in London. Other than that, I'm Don from Mayleaf. Thank you for being a part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from those tea bags, keep drinking the good stuff, and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.